що будемо тоді вже
We
починати
can get started right now.
нашу сьогоднішню конференцію, міжнародну конференцію на тему
So today we have an international conference on securing justice for Ukraine, war crimes, the crime of aggression, crimes against humanity, and genocide. This conference was organized together with the DP section, Ukrainian and Polish section, and Sunflowers Project and EU Project Bravo Justice. Unfortunately, right now, Mr. Hofmansky, the president of the ICC, couldn't join because of a very important immediate duties within his court. So I will give the floor to Dr. Mikhailo Radliskovsky, the chair of the criminal chamber of the Supreme Court in Poland.
Dzień dobry, dobry ranok, labas rytas, good morning. Bardzo dziękuję za zaproszenie do udziału w tej konferencji. Myślę, że wielkim wyzwaniem dla społeczności międzynarodowej, a w tym dla prawników, a zwłaszcza prawników zajmujących się prawem karnym, jest stworzenie skutecznego mechanizmu pociągania do odpowiedzialności sprawców zbrodni wojennych, sprawców zbrodni agresji, zbrodni przeciw ludzkości czy ludobójstwa. Znamy już dość długą historię trybunałów międzynarodowych, które w bardziej czy mniej skuteczny sposób o tej odpowiedzialności orzekają. Wiemy, że ten system jest coraz bardziej efektywny z Międzynarodowym Trybunałem Karnym na czele. Ale wiemy też, że wiele zbrodni wojennych nigdy nie zostało osądzonych i nie wiadomo, czy tak się stanie. W obliczu wydarzeń ostatnich lat i miesięcy w Ukrainie potrzeba osądzenia sprawców zbrodni wojennych jawi się jako szczególnie ważna. Zapewne z wielu względów będzie to trudne. Nie wiemy, nie możemy mieć pewności, czy do tego dojdzie. Ale trzeba uczynić wszystko, co możliwe, żeby tak się stało. Konieczne jest podejmowanie wszelkich działań w tym kierunku i myślę, że dzisiejsza konferencja jest jakimś elementem tych działań. Niewątpliwa jest potrzeba gromadzenia dowodów zbrodni wojennych, stworzenia systemu gromadzenia i zabezpieczenia tych dowodów. I ta konstatacja znalazła już odzwierciedlenie w ostatnich dniach w uchwałach Rady Europy. Z satysfakcją odnotowuję to, że także polscy prawnicy współpracują z wami wszystkimi w tym kierunku. Także w kierunku gromadzenia dowodów, ich zabezpieczania, ale także tworzenia systemu odpowiedzialności. Być może na końcu tego systemu będzie Międzynarodowy Trybunał, który zajmie się zbrodniami w Ukrainie. Życzę wszystkim owocnych obrad. Życzę tego, aby ta konferencja stanowiła ważny krok w tworzeniu systemu, o którym mówiłem i mam nadzieję, wierzę w to głęboko, że dojdzie do sprawiedliwego osądzenia sprawców zbrodni wojennych w Ukrainie.
And we will ensure the just bringing to responsibility of such war criminals in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we'll give the floor to the chair of the Cassation Criminal Court within the Supreme Court. Hello, dear colleagues. First of all, we'd like to thank you for a chance to meet and discuss important issues. I give you the best regards from the Criminal Cassation Court within the Supreme Court, from the community who are now performing their duties. It's been more than a year, over 450 days that the Ukrainians are fighting off the imperialistic expansion of the Russians within Europe. This expansion goes with Ukrainian invaders committing war crimes and genocide crimes and the crimes against humanity in terms of one of the biggest, within one of the biggest countries in the Europe. In the majority of cases, there are documented, these crimes are documented. And for the 15th of May of this year, we have almost 87,000 of such crimes. That's huge. But I'd like to bring to the attention of today's participants, it's not just some kind of formality. It's how the law enforcement bodies in Ukraine are approaching these crimes, and it's necessary to ensure their proper investigation. And in the case of the occupation of the territories that were invaded, the law enforcement bodies find places, they fix such the situations as to capture and imprisonment of local population and killing of civilians. And then every possible step is made to ensure that there is evidence to later hold such persons accountable. According to the current legislation in Ukraine, it's impossible for such crimes to be investigated without proper involvement of the justice system. And that's why from the very first days of the aggression, the courts have become focused, and now they're focused on making sure that such crimes are properly set forth and used. Right now, we have over 150 cases at different stages of court proceedings. And altogether, it's one of the most priority categories of cases that courts are dealing with. So, according to the law on the emergency situation in Ukraine, clearly states that the courts act within the powers set forth by the law, and any such abuses are unacceptable. But we have a situation when part of the courts cannot work because of the temporarily occupied territories, and for the courts that are inside the hostilities, and that's why it's impossible to carry out the judicial functions in such places. That's why where their jurisdictions are placed into more secure territories. We've had 130 such cases, but where the courts are deoccupied, they come back to work as much as possible now. To say that Ukraine wasn't ready at all, it wouldn't be fair to say. So we mentioned the unified standards based by the fact that it's necessary to ensure all the aspects related to investigating crimes from in respect of the substantive law. The Ukrainian legislation had some rules about the categories that we have today. And it's necessary, of course, it was necessary, of course, to improve some legislation provisions, and there were some amendments introduced, namely 124 amendments to the Criminal Code and 21 amendments to the Criminal Procedural Code.
Від стандартів, які існували раніше, відступити, зокрема, у перші тижні
And we had to somehow step aside from some usual ideas because at first there were some extraordinary functions to prosecutors in the very first day, but then we came back to normal and now we work as required. In respect of Sunflower Project, after getting to know the purpose of this project, that is creating a platform, it's necessary to ensure help and support and compensation and other aspects. It's important to note how important this initiative is, because it's not only help to our citizens, but also it's very important in terms of the objective information about what's going on in Ukraine in order to make sure that the justice is there and that we come back to really normal life within the framework of the international law, rather than the situation that we see for today. That's why I wish participants today to have interesting discussions, and I am sure that we have what to speak about and to hear each other. Thank you so much for giving me the floor.
Дуже дякую, пані суддю Кравченко, за ваше вітальне слово.
Thank you so much, dear Justice, for your welcome remarks. It's very important for us to hear these words of support, and I'm sure that today we will have a very interesting meeting for all the participants. Also, that's a pleasure for me to welcome here Gabija Grigarte-Daugirde. It's the Deputy Minister of Justice of Lithuania. It also shows that it's a joint cause, not only for Ukraine, but also for Poland, for Lithuania to bring justice for the crimes committed in Ukraine.
Good morning, and thank you really for inviting me today to greet all of you in the conference on the topic that remains to be the highest priority for Lithuania, and I do believe for all of us here today. Because justice for Ukraine in the case of unprecedented aggression being committed by the permanent member of the UN Security Council, Russia, demanded unprecedented reaction from the international community and still demands unprecedented decisions and consolidated efforts towards full-scale accountability. Crime of aggression against Ukraine is an attack on the whole international order, on fundamental international values that international community has committed to defend by all possible means when UN Charter was adopted. The reason why the crime of aggression is the core crime of all international crimes is that the direct target of this crime is a state, a sovereign, independent state of Ukraine that every day continues to fight for its survival. Every person in Ukraine is a victim of a crime of aggression, including brave defenders and soldiers of Ukraine. International Criminal Court, together with Ukraine and other national jurisdictions on the basis of universal jurisdiction, will make sure that perpetrators of all horrific atrocity crimes being committed in Ukraine are brought to accountability and face responsibility. International Criminal Court undertook historical responsibility and has made brave decisions, issuing arrest warrants for Putin and Belova, proving that there is no immunity from international law, there is no immunity from accountability, and immunity does not equal impunity. Important steps forward has been already made with the establishment with the Center for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression that will start functioning in the nearest future, because essential part of justice for Ukraine is accountability of political and military leadership of Russia for the crime of aggression. And only with the establishment of a fully fledged international special tribunal and with the involvement of UN General Assembly, international demand for justice for the crime of aggression can be met. Because crime of aggression against Ukraine is not just about Ukraine and its people, it is about all of us and about the whole international order. Dear colleagues, the title of this conference proves that there is hardly international crime left not to be committed by Russia in Ukraine. And this was impossible to imagine when UN Charter made the promise of international peace, security, and human rights for all. There is saying that promise is only as strong as the person who gives it. I am sure that promise of accountability for international crimes being committed in Ukraine and made by the whole international community in numerous international and regional resolutions will be strong. Every day in the Ukrainian struggle, we witness how strong unity and courage is. For keeping accountability promise, unity, courage, and constant efforts of all of us will be needed. Because growing number of thousands of pretrial investigations being started by Ukraine reflects the need of the capacity building in Ukrainian legal system also. And decisions on sharing this important responsibility for accountability with for example, members of the joint investigation team within Eurojust will have to be discussed, and decisions will have to be made in the nearest future. And the conference discussions like the one being organized today allow for all of us, to consider all the possibilities, all the mechanisms that already exist in international law that could afford so needed justice for Ukraine and its people in timely and most effective manner, making sure that safe haven does not exist in the world for perpetrators of atrocity crimes being committed in Ukraine. Seeing outstanding speakers today in all the panels, I have no doubts that the event will definitely meet expectations of all of us every day working towards delivering justice for Ukraine. Together, we can do more and we can do faster. So thank you again for bringing all of us here today together to be able to share our views, and suggestions how to make the promise for a comprehensive accountability system and justice fulfilled, bringing all responsible for international crimes in Ukraine to account. Thank you once again for the opportunity to be here with you.
Дуже дякую за ваше вітальне
Thank you
слово.
so much for your welcome remarks and for your constant support for Ukraine. Now I give the floor to Professor Gabriel Yudkaita-Granz-Kamet, the head of the Chamber of the Supreme Court.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, thank you for invitation and for honor to participate in this event. Its purpose, making criminal prosecution of war crimes performed against Ukrainian people and state more effective, no doubt is very important and well-timed. We all understand that the joint efforts of international and national institutions to